All righty, I brought along some castings that I had done for my Olympia project. Last month, I know I talked about the Arizona. Well, that's old news. I'm back to the Olympia. I can pass this around. This is a resin hull with evergreen plastic framing and wood details and photo etching. This was done for the Olympia, and that's the first of 18 boats that I have to make. And I wanted to do so in the most efficient way I could. So I decided to make molds and patterns and molds to cast the shells in resin without having to build each one individually. I think I presented some of these molds earlier to give you an idea of what was involved. From the mold, I would then cast a shell that I could then outfit. And in order to produce that, I wanted it to be hollow, thin shell. So what I do is I pour the resin into the mold and slosh it around until it got to the consistency of about like honey. And then at that point, just flip it over, lay it down and let it cure. And once it's cured, you end up with a shell and a lot of flashing, which can be cut away. And once you've done all that, cut the flashing away, you end up with a bunch of hollow shells, which again, I'll pass around. Take a look at it. They're fairly fragile in this state, but once you get the interior built in, it becomes quite rigid. And like I said, the Olympia had like 18 different boats, 11 different styles.
Gene, earlier you said there's a term for that. That type of cast.
Oh, I think I threw around the term slip casting, which pottery people, it's the same principle. You coat the interior of a mold and then it's hollow.
I think Don Poole used the term slosh.
It's more a slosh mold, yeah. And it works pretty easily, but the timing is very critical because I use a very fast acting two-part resin. And once you get it mixed, you've got maybe 5 minutes of usable time. And you can see it as it's sloshed around. You can see how it starts to thicken up. And when it gets to about honey, and flip it over. You don't want to wait too much longer because otherwise it'll cool up. Here's a sample. You can see where the interior kind of started to drift and thicken. But if you do it correctly, it works out quite well. And that's pretty much it. I mean, from there, it's just a matter of fleshing out the interior from drawings and so forth. And it makes for a very efficient process. And, a lot of boats put out quite quickly. Well, relatively. Took me about a week to do the first one. Hopefully the rest will go much faster.
Slip is the name of that watery clay that pottery uses.
Yeah.
That's what they call it, slip.
Yeah,
That's where that
exactly.
came from.
It's the same principle. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Yeah, question.
For a, use a mold release agent or?
I do for the to make the rubber mold. The pattern needs to be coated with like a silicone spray or something like that, keep it from sticking to the rubber. But once you've got the rubber mold, the cast urethane doesn't tend to stick. So you can easily get 2 or 3 or 4 out before you may want to treat it again. Just have it. But no, I've not had any issues with it sticking to the rubber. So I don't know what I'm going to do with all these door stops. This one, for example, was a one-off. Some of them are 3, so it's a hobby. It doesn't matter what it costs.
That's right. Give it to Greg.
It's not hard enough.
I can pass around a copy of this. Is a sample.
It was concrete maybe.
Oh, I think.
Yeah, well, the pattern is laid up with lifts, waterline lifts, and just carved out with that. So it only has to look good once. Yeah, once you got the mold made. All righty, that's all I got.
Thank you.
Who's next?
I will be.
All right.
This is called Welcome to My World. And I'm gonna pass this around. I'm gonna say September. A museum patron and member and unfortunately a good friend of Howard's came to me with the schooner that's depicted here to conserve it, but he wasn't sure whether he wanted conservation or restoration or rebuild or whatever it happened to be. By the time we got to the end of the discussion, he decided a conservation. In conservation and museumology, you don't change anything. You just stabilize it so that it doesn't get worse over time. Well, I tried to talk him out of it. He wouldn't be talked out of it because he'd had this model in his family for 150 years. It is in horrible shape, as you will see. It looks like it was painted by a kid with their fingers and maybe a rake. All of the parts were made with wood and probably a dull axe. So
That's
what you see
sophisticated.
is really what it looks like now, and I'm near completion. And you probably saw these sails during the break. The sails and all of the rigging, except some of the shrouds, turned to powder when you touched it. The shrouds didn't, because they've been painted, probably with house paint, a light gray, and you'll see that in the pictures. Now, this is what I've been doing, not to this extent, but a couple of them took me over a year. One took 1,700 hours. The last several years, restorations, rebuilds, conservations. But this is the first conservation that I've had. The guy said, I don't want it to look different. I just want it to be stable. And I told him the sails are definitely going to look different. Fortunately, my wife found some fabric that's this color, and it made a great sail. So all the sails are made. The rigging is ready to go on. And at the next meeting, I'll show you the finished product. You'll see that it looks like a clean, newer version of what you're looking at. Now, to paint a cabin roof red, bright, orangey, almost Dayglow red, is not in my book anywhere, but that's the way he wanted it left. So I carefully removed the mizzen and removed the cabin and found that it was made of cardboard, torn pieces of cardboard. And I'll show you a photo of that at the last meeting in June, because after that meeting, I'll have to turn it back into it. Now, the downside, Heinz said at one time, do not work on a model for over a year. Actually, he didn't say that. He said, do not work on one over a year because you will hate it. You will hate it. Well, getting to that point here. But the last Constitution I did took 1,700 hours. One prior to that, which was a no-name clipper ship, took 1,400 hours. This one's not going to take as long because I'm not changing the paint anywhere on it, for instance. But once this is done, he's already made his statement of contribution. Usually I say a donation to the American Museum at your own discretion is expected at the completion of the project. I want nothing. Therefore, if you're over 70 and take it out of your retirement account, you just write a check to the museum, you don't have to claim it. So because of that, and the looseness of the contracts and such, when this is done, the total contributions to the museum's general fund will total very close to $20,000. I mean, everything combined, this one alone is going to be in the neighborhood of $1,000. So you can do good, do well, and learn stuff. choose to get into that. Frankly, I'm gonna take a break, do a lot of other things, and maybe even finish one of my own bottles.
So will you will replace the stills.
Pardon?
You will replace
The sails have been replaced. These are the older ones. And they look exactly like this because obviously I use these as templates. Incidentally, you see the reef bands on these, the reef points, they're only on the port side. The name of the boat, Nellie, is only on the port side. The bits and such are only on the port side because that's the side that was displayed. The rest of the boat is finished, but none of the little details. are there. So I couldn't put them on. That's adding, that's not conservation.
I had a pond boat. And the lady asked me. Stills were
Yeah.
this big. It was main and a jib. It's the same thing. She didn't want anything changed.
Right.
And it was a little tear in one of the sails. The minute I touched it, it just turned to dust.
Yeah.
And it's just- Well, and it wasn't as dark as that. So up with my sail maker and she had a pot.
Yeah.
And got some Muslim and she dyed it about half as dark as that.
Yep.
And we brought it back to the woman.
I do tea dyes, from time to time, it's not good for the fabric. No, it would definitely cause the fabric to start corroding at a very, very slow rate. But fortunately, and was your wife your sailmaker?
Yes.
Because I had a couple sailmakers, one in South Carolina, one in Manchester, Vermont. One in South Carolina got calls like I think I'm getting. And the one in Vermont disappeared after one shot. But both of them made sails for me and sent back, one of them sent back a long note. Are you still, is your time still being donated to Marriage Museum? I said, yes. Well, got mine in there too. There's a $250 set of sailors that she donated to the museum.
My sailmaker can be coerced into doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, when I do it now with my wife, she's usually doing other things like quilting. Whatever.
Yeah, it's more than that.
Probably.
So whose model do I have up on the screen now?
It's fine.
Oh.
All right, what you're looking at right now is the Queen Anne barge. It's a kit by Siren Ship Model Company. Siren Ship Model Company, Chuck Massaro. And this one is made out of total cherry. And it's had a lot of frames. It's actually going to be a little bit longer because you got a tail section that comes out on here, but most of the frames are two-part frames and, just getting everything all lined up, get it centered. The keel is tapered down to 3/32 all the way across the top. Well, I guess the bottom, I'm looking at, because it's upside down, but it started at 5/32 up where it touches the frames. So it's ready right now to be faired. That'll be the next thing. It will not be totally planked. It will have 3 planks on this side. It'll have a full interior. Everything from the 3rd plank down will be left open, and it will will have the seats, the cockpits, and not much rigging on it. So that's a plus on this particular model. But should be a lot of fun to put together. It's been a challenge so far because you got to make sure that when you assemble these frames, you got the right height. And I just made a jig and made everything like from about, I think this frame here all the way down to this frame, the same height, because once it goes past that, it does start a curve to the front, to the bow. And then on the stern here, you can see that it's got some dead wood that it starts to drop back. But, it's very fragile. I've already broken 2 of the frames here and a little CA glue's got in there, but eventually the centers will be cut out. When I finish fairing and get the initial planks on it, I'll pull it off this jig and flip it over and cut the centers out and then kind of hollow out the inside, and it should work here pretty good. But nice little kit.
What is the name of it again, Ryland?
The Queen Anne Royal Barge.
Okay.
I think it's from 1705. So
You said the company that made it.
Siren
Ship model company, that's
Yes,
SYRE, that's Chuck Passaro's.
yes.
Incidentally, he's back in the rigging line business again.
Yeah,
Formula.
he's,
He doesn't make black anymore at all.
I saw him when I was up there. He was showing me how to make rope. I mean, it's just amazing. He's still a little rope making machine, you know. And,
You should talk him out of one.
give me one. Yeah, he sells them, but he called me. Donate one.
I talked to Chuck Passaro a short while ago and asked him if he would be willing to do a presentation, a Zoom type presentation for us with his comments. You can pick up his YouTube stuff. And I think that would be nice for presentation too. He's got three that produce about a 25-minute series.
Mhm.
But he said, I'm not doing anything right now, but I probably will this fall. So we're gonna stay in touch if we can get him to do it. A Zoom presentation, I think that would be neat for.
That's one about him planking.
Well, he's got a couple of them, but
He's
that
got-
three part is planking, yeah.
He also has two videos, I think, of making rope.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I've known some people that have purchased this rope machine and it's really, you buy that Mara. And the secret to Chuck is he has a recipe that you use. And you wind up taking your rope and putting it on, he uses a garage pulley and put it in your oven and bake it. And the heat is polyester rope, but it makes it, I guess it must weaken it or so that when it dries back out, it doesn't unravel like the mow rope does. I've used mow rope.
like melts. It's like it takes the tension out.
Yeah, the mow rope, you snip that, it's really weird. It'll just unravel real quick.
Yeah.
Because it has all that tension built up in it, but when you heat it, it takes the tension. So it's,
Sailors back in the sailing days, when they got new rope, they used to tow it behind the ship for however long it took for the tension to get out of the rope, and then it was pliable rope. They used to do that.
For model rope, I've heard something about hanging a weight on it, all that.
Yeah.
Alignment, so that
but
sets
we,
it.
The secret is making all the twists, making all those threads twist while you're twisting them into a.
oh, it's just, well, see, the machine does it.
Yeah, I know.
And
I've got one of those, it's like 10 feet long that we had at auction one time. But I have some of Chuck's old stuff that I'm guarding like treasure. Because it's linen and silk and cotton and stuff like that.
yeah, well, see, that's what I rigged my midway longboat, and when I went up to Connecticut, I pulled it out of the box and everything was drooping, and he told me it's because of the moisture in the air. And he said if I used his new rope, it wouldn't happen. The polyester is not affected by humidity.
Right.
But it's interesting when he does the rope, he rounds it together, he has to keep moving his machines apart, and then it gets to a certain point, and then it comes back out. He says, you'll know when you do it.
Yes, that's the problem with it is that I wish it was less art and more mechanic because there's a learning curve. You
Yeah.
have to get over
So
that.
you get to feel, there's a lot of things in this hobby that once you get to feel like, you almost know when you start planking the breaking point of wood. It's-
I know the hard way.
Yeah,
I found that the hard way just yesterday. I was fitting a plank on my model here in the model shop. And I have clamps that I put along the edge to see where I've got to take out some material to get everything to line up right. I put the plank on and it slipped out of my hand, very tight string clamp. And as it did, it just snapped the plank like that.
Great.
Start over.
I have one of those machines from Sarah.
yeah.
It's in a box right now. We're glad to put it together. If somebody will help me put on a demonstration how to do it.
rope making machine?
Yeah,
Okay, now there's another one, a serving machine too.
I don't have a serving machine.
I've got that.
I have the service.
That might be a good presentation.
Yeah, so learn how to do it and then you can tell us.
Yeah.
Would you like to do that in January? I'll put you down.
If somebody would help me, I have no idea what I'm doing. I just.
Well, watch his videos and then it's trial and error.
Yeah.
It's trial and error.
It would be a good demonstration. It's interesting to watch. I mean, it's.
All right, let's
Where's this?
Siren ship model company. I have, you want a handout?
Sorry, More, did you say something? I just happened to see some motion on the screen, More. Were you trying to say something?
Are you done with show and tell?
No, we're still going. We're looking for the next. You want to go? Are you going, John?
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah. All right, you're up.
Okay, I'll try to switch this camera. This is a new model that was just put out by Blue Jacket. It's a cross section of the Charles Morgan, including the tri-works. I just started this thing about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's really a cool model. It's 1:48. So what you're looking at is about 19 frames. It's about 10, 11 inches long, but it's already like 13.5 inches wide. So it's a really nifty model. I've done one cross section before, the bow section of the Victory, but this is the first time I've done, you know, a midships. So very, very nifty model. It's just newly put out by Blue Jacket, and looking forward to getting into the details on this model, but it's really nifty. It's going to be planked only on one side, and it'll be coppered on only one side, and the other side will be left bare. So the frames will actually be showing inside now. So that's current project.
Very nice.
Is it Joseph?
No.
John,
Yes,
this is Joe. What are the frames made of? What's the wood?
that I believe is all basswood. And
And they were all laser cut. You didn't have to.
yeah, they are laser cut, which explains why you can see some of these burn marks and so forth in the center.
Yeah.
And it was very, very difficult to remove this, but when I got rid of most of it, I started to realize that that actually was helping the appearance of the model. I like it.
Hardwood.
Looks.
Looks a little bit like tarred wood, so.
Yeah.
Looks really good.
Looking forward to it. It's really a nifty concept.
All right, anyone else online? Got something they want to show or tell? Anyone else here? John, you gonna show your Morgan or?
No, I could, but it's a long ways away. There's a whole bunch of mistakes on it, but
That is,
It's farther along your map.
show me a model that didn't have some mistakes in me. Anyone else have show and tell then? All right, that was shortest ever show and tell. All right.
I guess I could just, if I could just show it real quick.
Absolutely.
And I would request people after now.
No, see, too much self-deprecation doesn't fly.
think you've done a fine job so far.
Thanks.
Some of the stuff.
Self-deprecation is not allowed here.
It's all a learning curve anyway.
Well, I'm on a big curve. Let me take these out here first. Well, this is the Charles W., or supposed to be anyway, the Charles W. Morgan. She's plank on frame, obviously, and it's my first ship, so I'm learning a great deal about the planking. There are a lot of things on here that's going to be very complex. In particular, the reason why I brought this model in is this. On the stern back here, comes up and it's almost a 90-degree fall off to here. So my recommendation has been try and try to smooth this out a little bit. the instructions, the plans are very good. A lot of the instructions assume that somebody's an expert on this thing, knows what they're doing, and I don't, Ryland, a few of the other guys. It's been an enjoyable journey. I'm looking probably at about a 2-year process on this. And there's not enough, quite frankly, there's not enough wood that's in the kit to do the planking, so you have to kind of get some more. I called up folks at the Model Expo, and they were very gracious, gave me 50 more planks on this thing to get it done. But there's a lot of work in here. It's been a lot of fun. I've seen a real ship, and this is, like I say, my first model. And this is a lead in into the siren, which I got from Ryland, and ultimately the Constitution. And I have a special place in my heart for the Constitution. A buddy of mine and just before I retired from the Navy, we put together a book called Around the World, Old Ironsides from the ship's carpenter. And it's very interesting. In fact, Constitution was the first time that an American warship got actually involved in a place later called Vietnam. She was in Da Nang. And it's interesting that in 1845, she pulled in, Mad Jack Percival was the commanding officer of that ship. And he got involved with a French cleric had been captured by the Chinese warlords. Percival took a crew ashore trying to get to free this cleric, the priest. It was unsuccessful. He said it was like stepping into a quagmire. The more he moved, the more he tried to do, the deeper and deeper he sank. He said, I'm done. We're getting our crew out of here, put them back on Constitution, and got out of there. And I kind of wish that maybe we'd have gotten that lesson maybe 100 years later. Maybe we would have stayed out of it, out of this, because that's all it wound up being was a quagmire. Of course, some of us and some of the folks here were actually involved in that. But it's a good book. It's the Journal of the Ship's Carpenter, and it goes around. And I really enjoyed the part about the Middle East because I've been in the Middle East a couple times and looking at some of these ships and see how they deal with dhows and so forth. So I learned a great deal from it. But this ship is good. There's a lot to learn from here. I'm going into the siren and then up to the Constitution herself, and that's to me is the ultimate prize. So thank you for your time, and mostly thanks, guys. I really do appreciate the work to help me get through this and get started on it. So thank you. That's all. Are there any questions or anything?
Done a good job.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your guidance on this thing.
You're doing the work.
Okay, well, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Time for the presentation then.
One comment, the shelter is available.
Okay.
Go for it.
Yep. What's the date?
Shelter 10, September 10th.
September 10th?
Shelter number 10. Same shelter that we've been at before. Yeah. East Park.
Okay, yep. All right, another short break before the presentation. The special request of the presenter.